You're listening to the Connection Care Community Podcast, a podcast designed to help you understand your body more deeply and feel more confident navigating your hormones, cycle, and fertility. Each episode offers grounded, research-informed guidance and integrative tools to support hormone health, embodied awareness, and informed choice. If you're seeking clarity, connection, and a more trusting relationship with your body, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Here's your host, the founder of Connection Care Therapy, Majida.
Hello and welcome to the Connection Care Community Podcast. My name is Majida and I am very excited about today's topic. We're going to be talking about meeting your cervix, the forgotten center of your feminine wisdom. What your cervix can teach you about your hormones, your cycle, and your connection to your body. So hi there and welcome. This is a bonus podcast for the month, bonus article on Substack and bonus podcasts for the month. So launching into it. I remember the first time I met my cervix. I wasn't in a doctor's office and there were no stirrups. There were no sterile gloves and no clipboard of medical questions. It was quiet. It was just me and my breath and a kind of curiosity that I hadn't felt for years. So for most of my life, and maybe someone out there can relate to this, most of my life, my cervix was this abstract concept, something that was mentioned in anatomy textbooks or pap smear reminders or during certain sexual encounters, maybe then I'll bump into my cervix. But it was a place that I was not really told very much about, and I was certainly not told that I should check, right, or do anything about. It was really a bit of an unknown. So when I learned that my cervix could move, that it could soften and open and close throughout my cycle, that it wasn't static or hidden, but actually alive, it's an understatement to say that changed everything. That moment, it wasn't about fertility tracking or anatomy. It really was about belonging to my own body. So the cervix, we were never taught to know. Most of us were never invited to know our cervix outside of a medical context, and often in relationship to pathology. It's mentioned only in the same breath as a pap smear or HPV or fertility procedures. We're taught to be grateful for screenings, but rarely taught to be curious about this part of ourselves. And yet your cervix, it's not just tissue, it's communication. It reflects your hormones, your cycles, your emotions, even your sense of safety. When estrogen rises before ovulation, your cervix softens, rises, and opens slightly. And then when progesterone takes over after ovulation, it becomes firm, low, and closed. And when you're stressed or disconnected, your cervix can often mirror those emotional experiences by staying tense or less responsive. This is biology, but it's also embodiment. It's your body speaking in real time. A moment of connection. So a client came to me after years of charting. Her temperature and her cervical fluid, those were the main biomarkers that she was tracking. But she'd never checked her cervix position. It feels too medical, she said. It feels like something only a doctor should touch. So then we talked about what her cervix actually does, how it changes throughout the cycle, what she might feel. And she became nervous, but very curious. And some weeks later, she sent me a message. I did it, and I cried. Not from discomfort, but from recognition. She said it felt like meeting a part of herself that had been waiting to be acknowledged, like finding a room in her own house that she didn't even know existed. That's what I mean when I talk about the cervical connection. It's not a clinical practice, it's a coming home. Your cervix as a source of wisdom. Understanding your cervix is a powerful form of body literacy. It can help you to identify where you are at in your cycle. As I shared earlier, the cervix position changes predictably with your hormones. High, soft, open signals ovulation is approaching. Low, firm, closed usually means that you're in your luteal phase or in menstruation. Tracking your fertile window and your hormone balance, right? Your cervix changes can also help you do that. Because cervix changes precedes or accompanies cervical fluid shifts, it gives you another data point for understanding your overall fertility. Notice how stress and nourishment affects your reproductive health. So I've seen clients whose cervix stays low and firm, right, even in their fertile window when they're under chronic stress. When you address stress and sleep and nutrition, your cervix could start to respond again, right? So that's not a common thing, but for some, right, their cervix is so responsive that even stress and nutritional changes can impact, right, their cervix and its responsiveness to hormones. Because as we said, those things are very much connected. Reconnecting with a sense of trust and safety. This awareness brings your reproductive system out of abstraction and into relationship. You're no longer just managing symptoms, you're actually listening to signals. So what I learned from my own cervix. My cervix taught me things that no chart or no app ever could. During my recovery from adrenal fatigue, I've talked about that at other points on this podcast, my cervix would barely move throughout my cycle. Lo and behold, this was also a time when I was having all kinds of cycle difficulties, right? It would stay low, it would stay firm. Even when my fluid would suggest ovulation was trying to happen, my body at that point was too depleted to complete the process. So tracking helped me understand that I wasn't just not ovulating. Right? I was watching my body prioritize survival over reproduction. As I healed, my cervix started to be more responsive, first subtly and then dramatically. By the time I saw a full high, soft, open position at ovulation, I knew my hormones were finding their rhythm again. That tangible feedback was more reassuring than any blood test could be. Your cervix reflects the state of your hormones. It also reflects your nervous system and even your emotional safety. When you're stressed or disconnected, your cervix can remain firm and closed. When you're nourished and hormonally balanced, it can soften more and it can open more and be more receptive. In many ways, it's like a mirror, not just for fertility, but for how safe you feel at being at home in your body. So let's talk about the cervix and trauma and why gentleness matters. Before we talk about how to connect with your cervix, it's absolutely essential that we talk about why this connection might feel complicated or even unsafe for some people. The cervix holds memory. It's not only in some kind of mystical sense, but actually physiological nervous system memory. If you've ever experienced sexual trauma, right, the idea of touching your cervix might feel triggering or overwhelming. If you've ever had painful medical procedures or an IUD insertion, biopsies, perhaps a difficult birth, your cervix may carry associations with pain or violation. If you've experienced pregnancy loss, infertility, reproductive challenges, approaching your cervix might bring up grief or disappointment. And even without these specific traumas, many of us carry the weight of cultural silencing around our bodies. We are taught that our genitals are shameful, private, and not to be explored or understood. We learn to disconnect from the parts of ourselves as a form of protection or propriety. All of this matters because your cervix isn't separated from your history. When I work with clients on cervical awareness, I always emphasize that this practice is an invitation, not an obligation. You get to move at your own pace. You get to stop whenever you need to. You get to decide what feels safe and what doesn't. For some people, connecting with your cervix becomes a powerful act of reclamation. And for others, it takes time, it takes support, or it may take therapeutic work before you're ready. Or you may decide that the practice is just not for you. All paths are valid. If you've had a trauma history, consider working with a somatic therapist like myself. You also have pelvic floor physical therapy, a wonderful modality. Find a good pelvic floor physical therapist. Regardless of who you work with, make sure your practitioner is trauma informed so that they can support you in this exploration in a trauma informed way. Because you do not have to do this alone, and you do not have to rush. The goal isn't to get over your trauma or force connection, ever. The goal is to honor where you're at and to move forward only when your body feels ready. Meeting yourself gently. If you feel called to connect with your cervix, how do you do that? Right? We'll start simply. So first, I offer that you create a quiet space. You don't need tools of any kind. You just need clean hands and your curiosity. Then you take a few deep, slow breaths, allowing your body to soften before you begin. And then you move slowly. You may or may not be able to feel your cervix right away. Some people have a higher cervix that's harder to reach. Some days it's more accessible than others. All of that is normal. You notice and you don't judge. Is it soft like your lips or firm like the tip of your nose? Is it higher or lower, open or closed? These are all just observations and evaluations, not evaluations, right? And to say that part again, because it's important. These are just observations, not evaluations. You're just gathering information, not grading yourself, right? And this information will be gathered over time, right? Like everything in our bodies is cyclical, it's rhythmic. One cycle is some information, but mapped over multiple cycles is where you really start to get the picture. Know that this isn't about perfection, that this is about presence. Learning to meet your cervix is one of the most radical acts of self-connection you can practice as a woman. It's where the science and the embodiment meet, where body literacy becomes self-trust. So, if you are ready to start mapping your cycle, inside my Cycle Connection course and the consultations that I do, I support folks with learning how to identify ovulation even with irregular patterns, understand how to adapt FAM for different seasons of your life, whether you're in the conscious conception mode, the post-pill mode, the postpartum mode, interpreting charts when things feel off, and building confidence in trusting what your body is actually saying. We also, of course, explore the cervical position technique in the Cycle Connection course. So when you're ready to understand what your body has been trying to tell you, you might find it really, really cool to explore my resource, Hormone Harmony. This resource you can find in my resource library on my website, www.connectioncaretherapy.com. It's www.connectioncaretherapy.com. And this ebook is it breaks down the phases of your cycle, connecting with your hormones, energy, mood, so much more. It's a nice little resource around cycle syncing that I think you might enjoy. And if you need further support, you can book a one-on-one consultation with me. Of course, there's my Cycle Connection course, the free resources that I just mentioned, and I have a really wonderful and robust blog on fertility awareness, Fertility Awareness 101. You can check it out and share it with anyone that you think it could help. So the next article in this series is the cervix as a gateway. The cervix as a gateway will bridge science and sensuality and self-awareness and talk about why connection matters for every phase of your hormonal and reproductive life. So a bit of a reflection for you. When was the last time that you paused to notice your cervix, if ever at all? What might it teach you about your body? What if this month, and I don't think I mentioned, this article is actually in honor of Cervical Health Awareness Month. If in this month, during Cervical Health Awareness Month, instead of outsourcing your reproductive wisdom, you began to listen to it directly, what could that look like? So with warmth and connection, we close out today. Please do head over to my Substack and subscribe. You'll continue to get articles during Cervical Health Awareness Month to deepen your relationship with your body's innate wisdom. Thanks for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you in further podcasts. Be sure to stop by and say hi. All right, have a wonderful day.
That does it for this episode of the Connection Care Community Podcast with Majida. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you're leaving with a fresh perspective on your body and overall well-being, along with practical tools you can integrate into daily life. The support doesn't stop here. Be sure to connect with us online at connectioncaretherapy.com for more resources to guide you on your journey. You can also find us on Substack and connect with Majida on Instagram at Majida Sai'da. Remember to rate, review, and share this podcast. And most importantly, stay connected.